education, and she raised 4 children working in a low-wage fast food restaurant job. And when I was 18 years old and filled with the idea that I was going to become the first person in my family to graduate from college, I discovered that I was expecting a baby. Now that story ends well. She's 34 years old today, and she is the mother of the most beautiful 6-month baby girl you've ever seen in your life. But at that time, I felt like my life dreams were coming to an end, and that I was going to be destined to live the same struggles that I'd seen my mom live. I was a single mother for a time, and during that period of time, I was scared to death. There were so many days, even though I was working a full-time and a part-time job, when I would come home to find my electricity had been turned off because I couldn't pay the bill, or I'd go through that embarrassment that other Americans have faced where we have to put groceries back in the grocery store line because we don't have enough money for what we've got in our cart. My path up and out of that was made possible because I was willing to work hard, but there are a lot of people in this country today who are willing to work hard, who are doing the best they can to create a brighter tomorrow for themselves and their children, and yet they are trapped in the quicksand of poverty because we don't have the policies in place to be their partner. For me, I had access to affordable higher education. When I finally put my foot on the path of higher ed, it was at a community college near my home, and it was free to me because I had Pell Grants and other financial aid that made that possible for me. This, of course, is something that Hillary is fighting for. Free in-state tuition at every state university in this country. I also had something that Hillary has talked a great deal about in this election. And I'm so thrilled that she is elevating it to the consciousness of a lot of people in America who've never had to think about this challenge before. And it's the ill affordability of quality child care. We talk about but the ill affordability of quality child care in this country is a concrete ceiling, holding so many women and their families back. Think about it. If you are earning this ridiculously stagnant, suppressed minimum wage in this country, you are making $15,000 a year. If you're trying to raise children and put yourself in the workplace, it's a net negative by the time you pay the cost of putting your children into child care. And it's holding women back. It's holding their families back. But it's also holding the economy back. And it's the reason that Hillary has been so committed to the phrase, when women do better, we all do better. It is not trite, it is true. Absolutely true. Available to me, and the reason I put those pink tennis shoes on the Texas Senate floor 3 years ago, I had the only health care that I knew for several years at a Planned Parenthood clinic near my home. The great thing about that clinic was not only did I receive my only health care there, but I received the incredible warm counseling of people who cared about my future, made sure that I had the contraceptive care that I needed so that I could plan when and whether I would have another child. I know without a doubt, if I had faced a second unplanned pregnancy at that point in time in my life, there is no way I could have stayed on that trajectory. It would have just been too hard. And Hillary gets that. And one of my most profound admirations for her comes from the fact that on many occasions, not just in this recent debate where she so beautifully defended women's reproductive freedoms, she has done this her entire career, starting from going over to Beijing in her role as Secretary of State when she was being grilled about the support for women's reproductive freedoms around the globe. And of course, throughout this campaign, she has always stood for the idea that we, women, should control our own bodies, and it's no one's business reproductive freedoms and our economic opportunity. They are absolutely intertwined. And if we don't take care of one, we will not have the other. And once again, if we are held back, our country will continue to be held back. I am so honored to be among all of you and all of your reasons that you support her, and I'm sure there are so many different ones in this room. And when you launch off on your canvas today and you are out talking to people and doing what you're going to do to make the difference in this race, and I assure you, you will make a difference. When you're talking to those folks, you might hear them say, my one vote won't matter. I'm gonna sit this one out. Or maybe they saw some results coming in on Friday and they've decided that we've got this in the bag, which of course we know we can never be assured of that until the polls close on Tuesday. I hope you will encourage each and every one of them to own with tremendous pride the power of their individual voices. I learned that lesson, if I hadn't known it before, in a very profound way on that day 3 summers ago in Texas, when we, and I say we very purposefully, filibustered the anti-abortion law that was coming through the Texas Senate. On that particular day, in a state where people tend to believe that their voices don't matter. In fact, we have the lowest voting participation of any state in the country. These are proud Texans we're talking about, who have been conditioned to understand that the deck is stacked against them, that the result is predetermined, so why even bother? But for whatever reason, on that day, we'd all decided that we had had enough. And when I started the day, the Senate gallery was full and there were some people in the hallways of the Capitol. But as the day wore on, people who got up and had their breakfast that morning and had no thought of going to the Texas Capitol from all over our state began to make a pilgrimage to the Capitol. By the thousands, literally. And before long, the Capitol had to be closed because it filled to capacity. And if you've ever seen the Texas Capitol, you know, it is huge. It is a feat to do that. Not only were they in the Senate gallery, they filled every hallway, every level of the rotunda, and when the doors were closed, they spilled out all over the Capitol lawn. And as the day wore on, I could literally feel the vibration underneath the floor of my feet from the energy and the passion of the people who were there. And I knew that I was privileged to have their back, but that they were there having my back as well, that we had each other just as Hillary has had our back, and we are all now here to have hers. And what was really extraordinary about that day was that in the final 15 minutes, my filibuster was called to an end. The lieutenant governor and my fellow Republican senators broke many rules along the way to achieve that result. And I failed. But I had this incredible cadre of people who were there with me. And in that moment, when my sister senator asked the perfect poignant question that was born out of her frustration from not being recognized to speak, and though it was pertinent in that moment, it also had a broader contextual meaning. She asked the question, at what point is a woman's voice to be recognized over those of her male colleagues in the room? And when she did, it lit a fire in the people who were in the gallery, who stood and began screaming with all their might, which extended then into the hallways, where everyone in the hallways and every level of the rotunda and outside on the Capitol lawn. And it was the most beautiful, thunderous, noisy example of democracy that I will probably ever have the privilege of being a part of. And we were so loud that the Secretary of the Senate was unable to take a voice vote in time. The people's filibuster, rightly so. And you probably know that within a couple of weeks we were called back to another special session. That bill did pass into law. It was devastating in my state. We lived with it for 3 years. Thankfully, the Supreme Court, another reason that we need more repentance, the Supreme Court overturned that law. But what happened for all of us in that moment is something that can never be taken away. We learned the power of our voices. We learned by stepping up and saying enough and having enough faith in each and every one of our own individual powers to contribute it to a larger group. And that's what you're asking all of the folks that you're going to talk to today. Contribute your power. It may not feel like much on its own, but it's going to be added to another and another and another and another and another, and before long, we are going to be making the most beautiful, thunderous, noisy, democratic sound in this state and in states across this country where we join together and say, enough. We want Hillary Clinton, and we're going to put her in office, not just for her, but for every single one of us. I will tell you a story from an experience I had in New Hampshire a couple of days ago. I was coming out of Keene State College, and this woman came running out and said, Wendy Davis, where's Wendy Davis? And I turned around. She was about, 20 years older than me or so. She put her hand out and said, my name is Joyce, and I am the person that signed your admission letter to Harvard Law School. And I couldn't help myself. I immediately teared up, and I said to her, you changed my life. You literally changed my life. There are so many people whose lives are going to be impacted by this election. And they're never going to know that you went out and knocked on a door to make it possible for them. And they may not even know when a policy comes down the pike that's helpful to them. They may not even know that Hillary Clinton birthed it. But their lives will be improved. And that invisible hand that each and every one of you are will be that hand that helped make it happen for them. I hope you own that with incredible pride, because you are more powerful than you can possibly imagine, and you are making a difference. And I am so grateful to each and every one of you. God bless you. Thank you.